Welcome back to another Friday Functions video. This is a video that is on popular demand where many of the community members have asked for more guidance with using collections, especially our newer PowerApp users. So when you're using PowerApps and you're brand new, collections can be a little challenging. So I'd like to walk you through like a getting started 101 on using and understanding collections. So the first thing I want to do is say what a collection is. A collection is just that. It's a collection of columns and rows, which equals a table. So a table represents one or more columns and one or more rows. So when we create a collection, we are also creating a table. And so each collection can be simple or it can be quite complex and even have nested values. So I'm going to take you kind of from the simple to the more complex, excuse me, without getting too complicated. Keep it 101. So I'm going to start by adding a new screen. I like to use our screen layouts, especially for new users, because the screen layouts really are helpful. They kind of give you everything you need to get started. So I'm going to take the scrollable screen here, and I'm going to rename this screen Simple. I think it's a good habit to rename your controls. Sorry, I am catching a bad cold, so if my voice goes, forgive me. All right, I'm also going to remove anything I don't need, and I'm going to keep this very simple, so I'm going to delete those controls and just have the app name label and the rectangle with that blue background, which let's give it a gray theme for fun. Okay, little things that new users will appreciate. And now in here, I'm just going to call this one Simple Collection, sorry. All right, so now in this Simple Collection, I'm going to go ahead and save my app for the first time, just so I don't lose it. I'm going to call this Demo Collection app. And just save that. All right, another good idea, save your app, at least once when you're starting. Make sure you save it every so often, even though we do have automatic save. All right, so now you have the Simple Collection. Now I'm going to first put a control on the form so that we can collect information from our user. So I'm going to use a text input control, and I'm going to put that right here on this screen. And I can use my mouse to size it. Now you'll notice it has round corners. I'll just zoom in just a tiny bit here. If you don't like round corners, you can go over to your Property tab and remove the radius. If you remove the radius from this control, it will no longer have rounded corners. And there we go. The radius is 5. I change it to 0, and now it's a completely square input box. Now I don't want it to say by default text input. I want it to be blank, but I want to give my user a hint on what I want them to type. So I'm going to use a property called hint text, and I'm going to fill that one with enter your favorite fruit. Okay, so now we have some text to guide them, but that text is not really in that control, so it's not a value, it's just a hint. That's all it is. And then I'm going to rename the box itself text fruits. So sometimes I'll prefix my names to match what it is. It's a text control. I'll call it text fruits. This also prevents me from maybe if I have a fruit column in my data, right? I don't get it confused with the text input box. All right, so now I have that there. Now I want to make a way that someone can type in here, which we've done, and then I want to collect it into a collection. So I'm going to add a button to do that. So I'm just going to add a simple button right here. And what it's going to do is it's going to do a collect. So I'm going to just put collect there. And then I'm going to rename that button collect simple. BTN collect simple. All right. And now I have a button ready. Now let's tell the button what to do. Again, this is extremely straightforward. I'm making it bigger so you can see the formula bar better. I'm going to use the collect function, collect. You see that? And then I open and close a paren. And then if I go right in between those parens, it'll tell me what the syntax is. I need to tell it the collection name. And there it is. It tells me the definition of collection, an existing collection to augment, and then the item. So first, let's give it the collection name, which I'm going to call this My Fruits. Again, I'm avoiding replicating the same name in my fields, in my columns, and in my objects. So let's do it even better. Let's proceed all of our collections with COL. That way we can always spot a collection in the list when IntelliSense helps us. Now, what's the item? The item is going to be what's in text fruits, the text property. Okay, we can get any property out of that text fruits control. We can get a color. We can get anything we want out of that text fruits control. In this case, I want the text that they type in there. All right. And then I actually want to reset that control. And so we have this function called reset, and I will reset text fruits. Now, we have a reset form. If this was a form control, we would use reset form, but in this case, it's just a simple control. So I'm going to use reset. And what this will do is clear that field out so that they can add another thing. If I don't do reset, that field will remain showing the last thing they type. Okay? All right, let's give this a shot. I'm going to type apple and hit collect. And then I'm going to type banana and hit collect. Now, you didn't really see anything happen because it all happened in the back end, right? So I'm going to go here to the file backstage and hit collections. And you'll see there is our collection that we just made. For each time we click the button, we added a new item to our collection. Now, if you want to help the user see what they're adding, then on this screen with your text input, add a control that can hold the data. And you basically need a control that can hold more than one item. You can use a list box. You could use a drop down or a combo box. I'm going to use a gallery. And you'll notice I need to kind of zoom out a little bit so that I can see it. I'm going to choose a vertical gallery. It will ask me, what data do I want to associate with this? I'm going to use that collection. Since it is a table, it's tabular, so it's going to come up here. And then I'm going to set the layout to just title because it's just one word in my collection. All right. Now I can just drag this down beneath the button. I might want to do a couple things like get rid of this chevron because I don't need anything. I don't need them to select anything. This is just really for, let me see what I did. And I can make it taller so that it holds the number of items that I expect them to do. So now it's going to be more self-obvious when they add a fruit. Let's add kiwi and collect. Now they can see right away what's in the collection. All right. Now, what if we want to clear that collection, right? So I'm going to take an icon over here, and you might have a whole bunch of ideas as to what kind of icon. Maybe you want to use the X icon. I'm going to go ahead and use I like the reload icon, but you could use whatever icon you think means get rid of because we're going to clear this connection with this icon. And so when I add it, it pops up to the on select property. And now I want to use my clear collect function. And I want to clear that collection, which is cull. And see, this is why it helps to use the same prefix for everything. All of your collections would pop up to the top. I would take collect fruits, and let's just not put anything in it. We're just going to clear it. All right. So now if I hit this button, our collection is now empty again, and I'm starting over. All right. Kiwi, banana, And that's how that works. So basically, that's a simple collection, and that's how easy that is to do. Let's kick it up a notch. I'm going to Control S to save, and I'm going to add another screen. So I'm going to delete that first screen because the one we had when we first loaded the app we're not using. And I'm actually going to duplicate this screen because it has a lot of stuff in there that I'm happy with. You notice that when you duplicate, it does an _1 because objects cannot have the same name. But I'm actually going to rename these. This one's going to be Screen MultiColumn. Okay, because we're going to make a collection with multiple columns. We are not going to use a gallery, even though we very well could. I'm going to show you the data table for this one. And then the button, I'm just going to rename that button Collect Multi. So BTN Collect Multi, right? And then on the text fruits here, I'm going to actually collect, instead of fruits this time, I'm going to collect in that field the first name. Okay, so here's what I want to do. I want to change that hint text to enter your first name. Sorry, I unselected by accident. That happens. And then let's see. Let's go ahead and click. I'm on the second screen. Text first name. And I can do this over here too if it's easier. Sometimes it may be hard for you to kind of move around from here to here. The hint text is right on your right here, nothing to select. You can enter your first name. So I'm just going to change this to first name. I like having options on where I go. I tend to favor the formula bar just because I'm used to it, but I think that the property panel is probably easy for many people, right? All right, so now we have enter your first name. As soon as I click out of that property field, it will change it on the screen. Okay, so now I'm going to click on the collect button here and control click on the refresh and move them down. So by control clicking, you can select more than one thing. Then I'm going to copy and paste this one. I can do Control C, Control V right now, or if I prefer, I can use my Explorer to copy and then paste. Of course, when I do that, I want to rename this box text last name. And now I also want to change the hint text to say enter your last name. And when I step out of that field, it will change it on the screen. And now I'm going to put these under each other. Now, if you notice when you're moving things, you will get alignment icons. You can also control click on both of these fields and use your good old-fashioned PowerPoint alignment feature, align left, right? If you had more than 2 controls, you could also distribute vertically to get them evenly spaced. All right, so now that we have our controls ready, let's change our collect function here. So instead of collecting fruits, this time we're going to collect contacts, right? Now, how do we handle the situation where we have 2 columns? Well, 2 columns, we need to wrap it into a record, and we use these squigglies to say this is a whole record. This is a whole line item. And then you need to give it column names, right? So let's give it the column name of first in for the first name. And then we're going to copy that. Well, actually, we don't have to. This is really short. We can do last name and then do text. And then what we want in there is the text. Oh, I'm sorry. I came out of my quote. Shouldn't have came out of my squigglies, right? Comma, last name, colon, and then text last name. All right. So basically, this is a whole record. If you want to, you can put a shift return in between so you can see this really well. right? Maybe this is better if they're on different lines for you. If we started with a collection name, and then every row that we want in that collection, every table row should have squigglies around it if it has more than one column, okay? And each column needs to have a column name, colon, and what should be in that column, okay? You can keep going, comma, another column, column, another column, for as long as you want, as many columns as you need. Now, before I reset the text first name, let's reset the text last name as well. And this is what we reset those controls so that they can reuse them easily to add another name. Okay, so now we have our entire formula, which gives us this 2-column collection. All right, nothing else to do there. We're going to come out of there and just, I think I also want to rename the button, rename the collect table, maybe, so that you can, I'm just going to put collect columns because we're collecting more than one column this time. And then what I'm going to do is make sure that our reset is got the right collection name. I'm going to do collect contacts. Okay, so there we go. Now we're completely ready as for our configuration. Let's use a data table since we're doing multiple columns. All right, so the control that I'm going to add here is the data table, and I need to zoom out a little bit. Sorry, I'm going to zoom out because they collapse. If it's, this is the ribbon is responsive, so if there's not enough room because I've zoomed, I sometime will lose items on my ribbon, and so I unzoom to get them back. And so I can click on data table. And again, the reason I zoom so much is just because I should have my glasses on, but I don't. And I'm going to set this contacts to be the data source for the data table. And I'm going to make sure that I have the 2 columns that I want to show in the data table selected. And then I can move this out of my way and move the whole thing beneath our button. Sometimes I'll use this to zoom back out so I can see all things. And now we can give this a try. So I'm going to run it, and I'm going to put the first name of Audrey, the last name, and I just tab to get to Gordon and collect columns. And you notice it goes down to the top and the 2 fields up above reset. I'm going to do Jane Smith and then collect columns. And you'll see Jane Smith is there. Then I'll do Tim Jones, collect columns. You can see how easy this is to do. Ryan Cunningham, you get the point. All right. Now I want to get rid of it all. I hit my reset button and my collection is cleared. And now I can put in another contact. So I'm going to show you this collection. So let's do a couple of names here. Let's do we know this guy? Let's see. All right, and then we're going to close this. And if you look in the backstage, in addition to your data table showing you these, if you look into your backstage and click on collections, you'll find your collections there as well. And you can see here's the one with the multiple columns. And here's the one we did earlier with the fruits. So, but I find it helpful to show them on the screen what they're doing while they're doing it. You know, unless this is for a back-end operation, such as a flow. Perhaps you're collecting a list of items for a flow. In that case, maybe you don't need to show the user what they've collected. Maybe it happens in the back end. Okay, so basically that's how that works. Really easy. Now let's try something else. Let's imagine we want to use a collection to bring data in. So I'm going to go ahead and insert a new screen with the scrollable, and I'm going I'm going to add a data connection to my SharePoint list. Okay, just to show you that this works with data that you have somewhere else just as well. We're going to add my SharePoint connection here. This, of course, could be a connection to anything. I think I made a mistake and hit something I didn't mean to hit. So let's do that again. I don't want that. I'm going to do data sources and cancel. Sorry, I get confused with my little X at the top. Sorry. I'm going to add a data source, and I'm going to look for my SharePoint collection a little more carefully so I don't click the wrong thing. And I have too many, but I can just use the first one. It will give me my recent sites in the list. Since I use SharePoint so much, they're usually there. Otherwise, I would put the URL in the search area so that it could find that site. And now I'm going to go find something simple again, like the fruits. I have some fruits in a SharePoint list, and I'm going to connect to those fruits. Now that I have the connections to that fruits, I'm going to clean up this page a little bit because I don't need anything except for the title, where I'm going to call this page Collect from Data. Okay, now I'm not actually going to put anything on the screen. I'm just going to go straight. I'm going to rename the screen first. Rename Collect on Screen. Right? So basically what I'm going to do is go to the on visible property of this screen and say when this screen is loaded, but that's what's happening as soon as this screen is visible, I'd like to create a collection called SharePoint Fruits. And what I want to put in it is the fruits data. And you can see why I was careful not to use anything called fruits before because I knew I was going to use this data source. But you want to be careful to use prefixes with your collections and with your objects that you name in the Screen Explorer so that you don't run into conflicts with names of things. So what this is actually going to do is as soon as this screen loads, so right now, if I go to the collections, there is not anything in here. It's an empty collection. However, if I go to the previous screen and then bounce back to that screen, which means now I have an on visible happening, now that collection will be full. And you'll see we have the entire SharePoint table for fruits, the entire one. Everything is in there. Now, what if I didn't want all of it? I just wanted the fruit itself, right? I can do that too. So instead of doing collect SharePoint fruits, let's do a second one called collect SharePoint fruit titles. And then instead of just fruits, we'll hit a dot and we'll type title. So we drill down a little bit for our collection. Again, I'm going to bounce away from that screen and come back. And then if we check our collections back here, you'll see that we have the SharePoint fruit titles, and there they are, as only a title. So sometimes you want to bring data into your file on load, either on start of the app or on load of a screen, because maybe you want to set up a situation where there'll be offline access later. And so you'll need to have that collection loaded. There might be a ton of reasons why you might want to bring a collection or several collections into the app on screen load, maybe even for improving in performance, because manipulating a collection that is in the app is a little bit faster than manipulating a connection that's live. So there we go with that option for collections. Now I'm going to take you to another step using the data. All right. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this screen and rename this screen Collect And we're going to have the last function for this video, which is the ForAll function. Okay, so this one's going to demonstrate the ForAll function. And we're going to use ForAll in this demo. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to use that fruits collection again. Now, I duplicated the screen, so I still have that on visible property. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that from the screen, right, because we don't need it on this screen. What I do want on this screen is a gallery. So I'm going to add a blank gallery. And that gallery, I'm also going to connect to the fruits data in SharePoint. You can see it's very clearly SharePoint. It has a little SharePoint logo on it. And then I'm going to pull this down lower because I'm going to put the collect button above it. All right, now I think I'm going to use two. Yeah, let's split this. Let's split this a little bit. I'm going to do half of this screen with this gallery, and I'm actually going to zoom in so you can see this a lot better. I have gallery over here, and what I'm going to put in this gallery is a checkbox control. And there's my checkbox. I'm going to align it left and top. So I'm going to go to the align property, align left, and align top. And then I'm going to close this template up so that we're better spaced. And then instead of having the word option in my checkbox in the text property, I'm going to replace that with the dynamic field of this item title. Okay? And that will put our fruits in there. And I sometimes like the other scroll bar. I don't know about you, but this scroll bar is a little aggressive for me. So sometimes I'll use this one. I'll show you the difference. This one, basically you see it at the top and the bottom of the gallery. That's why I like it. It's less invasive to me. But some people think it's hard to find. So um, I'm going to be able to check these boxes, of course. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a button for the collection here. And I'm going to put in here collect checked. So what I want to pull into this collection is all the items that are checked. All right. Now I want to show where I want to kind of show you first how we build this collection. So it is not very much different than what we did before, actually. And just so I don't have to type it and get confused, I did put it into my little notepad here. I suggest you make yourself a OneNote with all your favorite um, formulas in it because you'll use them over and over and over again. And instead of having to remember them, have a little OneNote. Organize it by filter formulas versus collection formulas versus, forms formulas. And then you'll have a handy reference that you can use. All right. Um, all right, so basically to show you how I put this together, we still have the same collection requirement. You need to say, what's the name of the collection first? And in here, I'm calling this called checked. And then I'm using the ForAll function. And by clicking after the first paren, you could see that that is two parameters. So source, the data source or table to operate on, and formula, which is what do we want to get out of that. So I'm actually using as a source a filter that's saying filter all the items in gallery 2 where the checkbox value is true. Now, you may have noticed I didn't rename the gallery or the checkbox, and that's because I wanted to use my little notepad function. But at this point, if I change either one, so like if I go in here and I change the checkbox name to CHK fruit, right? And I change the gallery name to gallery checks, it will automatically change my function. So I kind of cheat, right? So I leave it the generic, and then I put my functions from my OneNote or whatever, and then I change their name, and then it updates my formula for me. Little side trick, all right? Now, I want to be able to show the user what this call check collection has live on the screen, and that's why I saved space for another gallery. So I'm going to go ahead and insert another gallery, a blank horizontal gallery. And I'm going to set this one to the new collection called checked. All right. And I'm going to put the layout to just title because there's only one word in there. And then I'm going to get rid of the chevron because we don't need it. And then just make space for this so that people can see what they have added to the collection. Right now, nothing's checked, so of course it's empty. Okay, I'm just going to move this down. Well, they probably are too tall, so let's make them a little shorter. Notice that even though I don't see the bottom of the second gallery, PowerApps is helping me align with it. All right, let's remove the separator. It's kind of weird looking over there, so I'll delete the separator. And I'll rename this gallery collection. Gallery gal collection. That's good enough, right? All right, so let's run it and see how it works. So if I click on apple and avocado, banana, I must have clicked on grapefruit earlier. Now I'm going to click that collection, collect, and look, it collects all the fruits that I checked. And that's a pretty useful thing in a lot of different scenarios. Of course, I could also do a reset like we did on the other screens to reset it. And I could configure if-then statements that say what to do if I uncheck it, right? And so that's the whole 9 yards of the 101 of using collections. I hope this is helpful to you because I find that using collections saves me a lot of time in a lot of different ways. So this is part one. I'll come back to you and give you a part two of this to kind of talk more about using collections at a later date. In the meantime, let's all of us enjoy our weekend and have some fun. I hope you'll do something interesting this weekend. And if not, next week, happy power apping.